Mara wanted nothing but a quiet life, tips, rent, and sleep. But fate had other plans. On a rain-soaked night, she found a dying boy with no heartbeat and eyes that glowed like stars. And when she called his father, the king of the vampires rose from the shadows to collect what was his. That night, her story began not as prey, but as the spark that could end a war. Quick one, drop your country or city in the comment. Let's see how far this story travels. Chapter 1, The Alley and the Boy. The rain came down in sheets, soaking everything. The streetlights reflected off puddles, turning the cracked pavement into glowing mirrors. Mara pulled her thin jacket tighter around herself as the wind pushed cold drops down her neck. It had been another long day at the diner, 12 hours on her feet, 3 customers who didn't tip, 1 who yelled, and only $32 in her pocket. Her rent was due in 2 days, and her phone bill had already bounced. The last thing she wanted was to take the alley shortcut home, but she was too tired to walk around the long way. The alley was narrow and smelled of wet trash and old oil. Water dripped from rusted pipes and echoed off brick walls. Mara muttered to herself, "Just keep walking, Chun. It's fine. No one gets murdered before payday." Then she saw him. At first, she thought it was a pile of clothes. But as lightning flashed, she froze. A boy lay crumpled against the wall, his face pale and still. "Oh my God," she whispered, hurrying forward. Hey, are you okay?" The boy didn't move. He looked about 10 years old, maybe younger. His clothes were soaked, an old-fashioned velvet jacket with shiny buttons, trousers that looked handmade. It was like he'd stepped out of a painting. "Kid," she said, kneeling beside him. "Can you hear me?" She touched his shoulder. He was warm. Too warm for someone lying in freezing rain. Mara pressed 2 fingers to his neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. Panic rose in her chest. Come on, don't do this." She moved her fingers to his wrist, still nothing. Her heart pounded. She tilted his head back to check his breathing. His skin was cold but soft, almost too smooth. That's when she saw it. Something clutched in his small hand, a ring, thick and golden, the kind of jewelry rich people wore in old movies. The top was carved with a strange crest, a crown made of thorns, wrapped around a single red stone. It glimmered like a drop of blood. "What's this?" she whispered, gently prying his fingers open. The metal felt oddly warm in her palm. She turned it over and gasped. Inside the band were tiny numbers engraved, like a phone number. Her fingers shook as she took out her phone. She didn't know why she was doing this. It could be stolen. It could be dangerous. But something inside her said the number mattered. She dialed. 1 ring. 2. Then a voice, deep, low, calm, and commanding. "Speak." Mara blinked. Hi. This is weird, but I found a boy, he's unconscious, in an alley off 5th Street. He's got this ring with your number inside. I think he's hurt. Describe him." The voice cut through her words, smooth but sharp as a blade. He's small. Maybe 10. Pale skin, dark hair, fancy clothes, like old-timey clothes. He's not breathing but he's warm. I don't understand. What color are his eyes?" "They're closed," she said, bewildered. "He's unconscious. Open them." "What?" "Open them," the voice repeated, leaving no room for argument. Mara swallowed, nerves twisting in her stomach. Okay. She leaned closer, hesitated, then gently lifted one of the boy's eyelids. She gasped. His iris wasn't brown or blue, it was gold, but not a flat gold. It shimmered like it was alive, flecks of light moving inside like tiny sparks. "They're gold," she whispered. "With glowing bits, like embers." The line went quiet. Too quiet. Then the voice said, softer now but heavy with power, "Your name?" "Mara," she stammered. "Mara Chun. Look, he needs an ambulance." "Should I?" "Stay where you are," the voice ordered. "Do not let anyone touch him. Do not call anyone else. We are coming." "Wait, who are?" The call ended. Mara stared at her phone. Her pulse thundered. What the hell was that? The boy hadn't moved. The rain plastered his dark hair to his forehead. Mara sighed, shrugged off her jacket, and laid it over him. Hang in there, kid. Whoever that was, they sounded serious. Minutes passed. The city noises faded. Then, from the far end of the alley, she heard it, a soft hum, low and smooth, like the purr of an expensive engine. Headlights didn't flash. No screeching tires. Just quiet, controlled power. 2 black cars slid into view. Sleek. Expensive. They shouldn't have fit in the narrow alley, but they moved like shadows, stopping right in front of her. Doors opened in perfect unison. 5 figures stepped out. They all wore long, dark coats that glistened with rain, their movements too smooth, too exact. Something about them screamed military, but none wore uniforms. One stepped forward. Tall. Pale. Eyes that reflected the dim alley light like a cat's. You called the king, he said, his voice deep and respectful, but wary. The what? Mara managed. I called a number. The boy, his not. The man knelt beside the boy, his long fingers checking vitals with eerie precision. He's alive, he murmured, though the boy's chest didn't rise. Alive. Mara didn't understand. The man glanced at the ring still in her hand. You touched it. Yeah. Why? He looked up, and for a heartbeat, his silver eyes caught hers. Metallic. Unnatural. It should have burned you. What are you talking about? She whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he nodded to the others. 2 of them stepped forward with something that looked like a futuristic stretcher, part metal, part glass. They gently lifted the boy into it. Wait, Mara said, stepping back. You're just taking him? Who are you people? What about his parents? The tall man stood, towering over her. His father will want to speak to you. His father. The king. He gave her one long, unreadable look. You saved the heir's life tonight, Mara Chun. Whether that is a blessing or a curse, remains to be seen. Before she could reply, they loaded the pod into the car. Doors shut. Engines hummed. Within seconds, they were gone like the night had swallowed them whole. Mara stood alone in the alley, soaked, trembling, staring at the wet pavement. Her jacket was gone. So was the boy. Only the echo of that strange voice lingered in her ears. You called the king. Chapter 2, Arrival of the Shadows. Mara didn't sleep. She sat on her worn couch, staring at her phone. The clock on the wall blinked 3:14 a.m. Her jacket was still gone, her hair still damp, and her brain still buzzing. She'd searched online for hours. No Prince Adrian anywhere. No vampire King Lucian, obviously. She laughed once, bitterly. Sure. A vampire king. Right. Then she remembered those eyes. Not just gold, they had moved. At 4:47 a.m., someone knocked on her door. 3 sharp knocks. Not pounding. Not timid. Just deliberate. She froze. Mara Chun, a woman's voice said through the door. Calm, smooth, and low. I am here on behalf of the king. The boy is asking for you. Mara's throat went dry. How do you know my name? A pause. Please open the door. Against every ounce of common sense, she did. The woman standing there was impossible. Her skin was dark and flawless, her black hair braided neatly, her suit tailored like something out of a movie. But what caught Mara's attention were her eyes. They glowed faintly violet, even in the dim hallway light. Miss Chun, she said politely. You need to come with me. Where? Mara's voice cracked. It's 5 in the morning. The king wishes to thank you. And the boy, Prince Adrian, refuses to rest until he sees you. Mara blinked. Prince Adrian? You're serious? The woman tilted her head slightly. Please. Bring nothing. You will return before dawn. Mara hesitated, then grabbed her keys out of habit. If I die, I'm haunting whoever's in charge. A tiny smile ghosted across the woman's face. Noted. Outside, a long black car waited. The door opened on its own. The seats inside were leather, soft and cold. The car moved the moment Mara sat down, silent, smooth, too fast for comfort. City lights blurred past. Then buildings faded, replaced by dark trees and empty roads. Where are we going? Mara asked. The Cathedral of Saints, the woman replied. It's under renovation. That place? It's been closed for years. Yes, said the woman. For humans. Mara frowned. Excuse me? But the woman didn't answer. The car stopped behind the cathedral, where the stone walls loomed high and wet from rain. The woman led her to a side door, metal, rusted, locked. She touched it with her palm, and the lock clicked open by itself. Mara followed her down a narrow staircase. The deeper they went, the colder it got. Dim lights flickered along the walls. The air smelled faintly of iron. How far down does this go? Mara asked, her voice echoing. Farther than most dare, the woman replied simply. After what felt like forever, they reached a door made of dark stone. The woman pressed her hand against it. It opened soundlessly. Mara gasped. The chamber beyond was huge, a cathedral beneath a cathedral. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, casting a cold white glow. The walls were lined with tapestries older than the city. People moved quietly through the hall, tall, elegant, unnaturally graceful. Some turned to look at her, and their eyes reflected the light in shades of silver, gold, or crimson. What is this place? Mara whispered. The court, said her escort. Follow me. They walked across a floor so polished it mirrored the chandeliers. The sound of Mara's sneakers squeaking echoed embarrassingly loud. Whispers followed her. At the end of the hall, on a raised platform, sat a man. He wasn't wearing a crown, but he didn't need one. His presence was authority. His hair was dark, pulled back. His face was pale and sharp, like marble brought to life. His suit was midnight blue, fitting him perfectly. But it was his eyes, icy, ancient, and piercing, that froze Mara in place. Lucien Vale. The Vampire King. Miss Chun, he said. His voice was the same one from the phone, low and commanding, the kind that made the room quiet. Approach. Mara's legs moved before her brain could object. She stopped a few feet from him, unsure whether to bow, curtsy, or salute. You found my son, Lucien said, his eyes never leaving hers. At approximately 11:43 p.m. Tell me everything. Mara swallowed. He was just there, lying in the rain. I thought he was dead. I checked for a pulse, but he was warm, like, too warm. I found the ring with your number. I called. You touched the crest. Yes. To read the number. Lucien's gaze sharpened. It should have burned your hand. Well, it didn't. She held up her palm. See. Normal hand. He rose from his seat. Up close, he was even taller, easily 6.5 feet, moving like liquid shadow. He circled her once, studying her. You are not normal, Miss Chun. Tell that to my landlord, she muttered. A flicker of something amusement passed across his face. Then the great doors at the side opened. A small voice echoed, soft and weak. Mara. She turned. Adrian stood there, pale as moonlight, wrapped in a white robe. His golden eyes glowed softly under the chandelier light. Hey, she said, shocked. You're awake. He ran forward before anyone could stop him and threw his arms around her waist. You came back, he whispered. I was scared you wouldn't come back. Mara froze, then gently hugged him back. You scared me, kid. Don't do that again. Lucien watched them, his face unreadable, but his eyes flickered fear, maybe even tenderness. Adrian, he said softly. You need to rest. No, Adrian said, clutching Mara's hand tighter. She's safe. I know she's safe. Lucien's expression hardened. Miss Chun, he said, voice cool again. You have become entangled in matters beyond your understanding. Mara straightened. I didn't ask for this. Neither did my son. He turned to the woman who had brought Mara. Prepare a room. She stays tonight. Under guard. For her protection. Wait, what? I didn't agree to. Lucien's eyes met hers, and the rest of her protest died on her tongue. Someone tried to kill my son, he said quietly. The weapon they used has not existed for 200 years. Until I know who sent it, you are not leaving. The woman bowed slightly. Yes, my lord. As she led Mara away, the last thing Mara saw was Adrian's small face, watching her go, and Lucien's cold blue eyes following both of them. For the first time, Mara realized what the rain in the alley had really washed her into. Not just danger, but a world that was very much alive beneath the city's skin. And it had noticed her. Chapter 3, Summoned by the Vampire King. Mara didn't know how long she'd been walking. The woman led her through hallways that twisted like veins beneath the city. The deeper they went, the colder the air became, the silence heavier. Only the soft click of the woman's heels broke it. They reached a long corridor lined with doors that shimmered faintly, like water catching candlelight. Mara couldn't tell if it was metal or something else entirely. "This way," said the woman, her tone calm but firm. The door at the end of the hall opened without her touching it. Inside was a small chamber lit by warm amber light. A fire burned quietly in a marble hearth, filling the air with the scent of cedar. Mara blinked in surprise. "This is a room for tonight," the woman said. "You will rest here. The king will call for you soon." "I don't think I'll be doing much sleeping," Mara muttered, looking around. The room was elegant old furniture polished to a soft glow, silk curtains the color of midnight, a bed so large it could fit 3 of her apartments inside it. When she turned back, the woman was already leaving. "Wait, what's your name?" Mara called. The woman paused at the door. "Celeste," she said. "Do not wander, Miss Chun. The castle has ways of swallowing the curious." The door closed with a whisper. Mara stared after her, then rubbed her arms. "Yeah, great. Add creepy riddles to the list." She sat on the edge of the bed, her mind spinning. The boy, Prince Adrian, was alive, or at least moving. The man she'd spoken to was a king. And somehow, she was stuck in an underground palace that shouldn't exist. Her eyes fell to the fireplace. Shadows danced across the walls, making the carved figures on the furniture seem alive. The flames shifted suddenly, glowing pale blue for a heartbeat, then red again. Mara jumped. "Okay. Nope. No ghosts tonight." She walked to the small table beside the bed and touched the gold bell resting there. Before she could even wonder if it worked, the door opened again. A man entered, tall, lean, dressed in black. His eyes gleamed silver, the same color as the men from the alley. "The king requests your presence," he said. His voice was formal but not unkind. Mara stood quickly, smoothing her damp hair. "Right now?" "Now," he confirmed. They walked through corridors that looked older than any human architecture, arches of stone carved with runes that pulsed faintly as she passed. The air carried a hum, low and vibrating, like music just beneath hearing. When they reached a vast hall, she felt her breath catch. The same throne room she had seen before stretched before her, but this time it was empty except for Lucien Vale himself. He stood at the far end, facing a tall window of stained glass that showed a blood-red moon. He turned as she entered. "Miss Chun." "Your Majesty," she said awkwardly. It felt ridiculous coming out of her mouth, but it was all she could think of. "Lucien will suffice," he replied smoothly. "You are not one of my subjects." "Well, that's reassuring," she muttered. Lucien's lips almost twitched. "Sit." A chair appeared where there hadn't been one before, dark wood, carved and elegant. Mara hesitated, then sat, every muscle tight. Lucien studied her in silence for a moment, his eyes sharp and glacial. "You found my son in an alley," he said. "Describe precisely how." Mara swallowed. "I was walking home. I cut through the alley by the old theater, it's faster. I saw him lying there, not moving. I thought he was dead, but he was warm. No pulse, though. Then I found the ring." Lucien's gaze flicked to her hand. "The ring is enchanted. Forged from ancient gold that rejects mortals. Yet it did not harm you." "Lucky me," Mara said softly. He tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing. "Or something else entirely." He moved closer. His presence filled the space, commanding without effort. "You said he was warm. Did he bleed?" Mara frowned, trying to remember. "No. I checked for injuries. There wasn't a scratch on him." Lucien nodded once. The substance in his blood was enchanted silver, poison long thought extinct. Whoever used it wanted to ensure no vampire could heal him. She blinked. Vampire? He looked at her, unblinking. You are not a fool, Miss Chun. You have already guessed what we are. Her throat tightened. I guessed. I just didn't want to be right. Lucien's expression softened by a fraction. My son, Adrian, was taken from our home 3 hours before you found him. The attackers vanished before my guards could trace them. Yet they left him in your world, alive. Why? I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe they wanted him to be found. Lucien stepped closer. By you. Mara's pulse jumped. You're asking the wrong person. Perhaps, he murmured. But my instincts are rarely wrong. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. The firelight painted Lucien's face in gold and shadow. He looked like a statue come to life, too perfect, too dangerous. Then the great doors opened again, and Celeste appeared, bowing. My lord. The prince is awake and asking for Miss Chun. Lucien's expression flickered, surprise breaking his icy composure. Bring him here. Moments later, Adrian entered the room, barefoot and pale, wrapped in a soft white robe. His golden eyes lit up when he saw Mara. Mara, he said, running forward. You came. Mara stood quickly, catching him as he threw his arms around her. Hey, careful. You should be resting. I couldn't sleep, he said. I had to make sure you were real. Lucien's gaze lingered on them, unreadable. Mara crouched to meet Adrian's eyes. You scared me, kid. You don't remember what happened, do you? Adrian frowned, thinking hard. I remember the rain. Someone called my name. Then pain, here. He touched his neck, where faint silver scars glimmered. And a voice said, she'll save you. She? Mara asked softly. Adrian nodded. A woman. She was crying. Lucien's expression darkened, shadows passing over his features. That will be all for now. Adrian looked reluctant to leave. Will she stay? He asked his father. For tonight, Lucien said. Adrian turned to Mara, whispering, promise you won't disappear again. Mara smiled weakly. I'll try. When Celeste led the boy out, silence filled the chamber again. Lucien looked at Mara, his eyes cold but questioning. He dreams of things no child should. Tell me, Miss Chun, have we met before tonight? No, she said quickly. I'd remember. Lucien's gaze hardened. Then how does my son know your name? Chapter 4, Bloodlines and Lies. Mara lay awake long after she was escorted back to her room. The fire had burned low. Shadows climbed the walls like slow-moving smoke. Lucien's last question repeated in her head. How does my son know your name? She didn't have an answer. But the way he'd looked at her, like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve, made her stomach twist. She turned over and stared at the ceiling. She had no reason to trust these people. But she couldn't forget Adrian's trembling hands when he'd hugged her, or the way he'd said, you came back. When she finally drifted off, her dreams were strange. A woman's voice sang softly a lullaby in a language she didn't understand. The melody wrapped around her like smoke. Then a whisper. Find the truth, Mara. She woke with a gasp. Morning light, or what passed for morning in this underground place, filtered through sheer curtains. Someone knocked gently. It was Celeste again. The king requests your company for breakfast. Breakfast? Mara blinked. You people eat. Celeste's lips twitched. Some of us. She followed her through corridors now alive with quiet movement. Servants moved silently, carrying silver trays and books bound in leather. Every one of them glanced at Mara as she passed. Some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled dislike. They reached a smaller chamber bathed in pale light. Lucien sat at a long table, reading a sheet of parchment. When Mara entered, he folded it neatly. Sit, he said. Mara eyed the spread, fruit, bread, and something dark in a crystal cup she decided not to ask about. Sleep well, he asked without looking up. Define well, she said. A hint of amusement crossed his eyes. You are remarkably calm for a human who woke in a vampire's court. I'm just trying to pretend this is a fever dream, she replied. Lucien leaned back slightly. My son trusts you. That alone is unusual. I didn't do anything special. I just helped him. That is precisely what makes it special. His tone softened. Most humans would have run. Maybe I should have, she said under her breath. Lucien's expression grew serious again. Adrian said someone told him you would save him. A woman. Do you recall any such person? No, Mara said. But I dreamt about one. She sang. Lucien's hand stilled. Sang? Yes. A lullaby. I don't know the words. He stood abruptly, turning away. That melody, he said quietly, was my late wife's. Mara's heart skipped. Your wife. Adrian's mother. Elena. His voice was calm but carried pain. She died giving birth to him. Or so we believed. Mara frowned. Believed. Lucien faced her again. Until last night, my son hadn't spoken her name in years. And now he dreams of her, and you hear her song. That cannot be coincidence. Mara's hands trembled. You think I'm what? Reincarnated? No. But there is something in your blood that resists our magic, our wards, our weapons. Even the ring recognized you. I'm just a waitress, she insisted. My biggest secret is that I once stole a coffee mug from work. Lucien's gaze softened slightly, almost pitying. You are more than that, Miss Chun. Whether you wish to be or not. Before she could respond, Celeste entered quietly, bowing. My lord, the council demands an update. The elders grow restless. Lucien sighed. They can rest when they're dust. Still, I must attend. He turned to Mara. Stay here. Do not leave this room without escort. Mara crossed her arms. You think I'm just going to sit around? Yes, he said simply, and left. As soon as the door shut, Mara groaned. Of course. She looked around the room, bookshelves, a desk covered in papers, a tall window draped with velvet curtains. Curiosity tugged at her. She walked to the window and pulled the curtain back. The sight made her gasp. Beyond the glass stretched a vast underground world, a city carved into stone, glowing with torches and strange orbs of light. Spires and bridges stretched in every direction. It was beautiful and terrifying. Then something moved in the reflection. A shadow behind her. Mara spun around. A tall man stood near the doorway, half in darkness. His eyes gleamed copper-red. Hi, she said carefully. He smiled without warmth. So you're the human everyone's whispering about. Depends who's asking. He stepped closer, his voice deep and smooth. General Thorne. I command the king's armies. Oh. Great, she said, backing up slightly. Do all of you sneak into rooms uninvited? He chuckled. Only when curious. His gaze swept over her, assessing. You must be very special to make Lucien defy the council. I'm not special. Just unlucky. Thorne tilted his head. Perhaps. Or perhaps fate has decided to amuse itself. He turned toward the door. Be careful, Miss Chun. This place has teeth. When he left, Mara exhaled. The room suddenly felt colder. Hours later, Celeste returned to escort her back to her quarters. But before leaving, Mara couldn't help asking, Celeste, what really happened to the Queen? Celeste paused, her expression unreadable. Elena was human. Loved by the king. Hated by the court. Her death saved a war. What kind of war? The kind that ends worlds, Celeste said softly. And if the council discovers the same blood runs in your veins, Miss Chun. She looked at Mara gravely. It will begin again. Chapter 5, The Mark of Fire. Mara awoke to the faint crackle of the fire in her room and the sound of quiet footsteps outside her door. For a moment, she wondered if she'd dreamt everything, the boy, the ring, the underground castle, but then the memories crashed back in waves. Lucien's voice. Adrian's eyes. The word vampire. She sat up, rubbing her face. Yeah, no way this is a dream, she muttered. The door opened without a knock. Celeste entered, holding a folded bundle of clothes, dark fabric that shimmered faintly like ink. His Majesty requests your presence in the observatory, she said. Mara blinked. You people really love dramatic settings, huh? Celeste ignored the comment and placed the bundle on the bed. Wear this. You'll be among the council. Mara looked at the outfit: black trousers, a long tunic, and a cloak trimmed in silver thread. I'm a waitress, not a magician. Celeste's faint smile was almost human. You adapt quickly, Miss Chun. That's why you're still alive. The observatory wasn't what Mara expected. It was circular, with a domed glass ceiling that showed no sky, only darkness, and faint moving lights that looked like stars seen through deep water. A long table stood in the center, surrounded by elegant figures whose reflections gleamed in the glass floor. Lucien stood at the head. When Mara entered, the conversation stopped. Every gaze turned toward her, cold, assessing, curious. Lucien gestured. Miss Chun. She stepped closer, her heart thudding. You said you wanted to see me. Lucien's voice was calm. Show them. A guard stepped forward and handed her something wrapped in velvet. When she opened it, she almost dropped it. It was the same ring, the one Adrian had held. Touch it, Lucien said quietly. Mara frowned. Why? You said it was cursed. Enchanted, he corrected. Not cursed. It recognizes bloodlines. Yeah, that's not comforting. Still, she reached out. The metal met her skin, warm, heavy, and suddenly a faint glow pulsed beneath her fingers, red like a coal flaring to life. Gasps echoed around the room. Mara dropped it with a yelp. Oh. It burned. Lucien's eyes flashed. Show me. She held out her palm. The skin wasn't burned, but in the center was a faint red mark, a symbol shaped like a thorned crown, identical to the crest on the ring. What is that? She whispered. Lucien's expression darkened. It's a seal. A blood mark. The ring recognized you. Recognized me as what? He didn't answer. Around them, the council members whispered. She bears the mark. Impossible. No human should survive that. She's of the old blood. Lucien raised a hand, and silence fell instantly. Enough. He turned to Mara. You have a choice, Miss Chun. Tell me everything you know about your family, your lineage, your history. Mara shook her head. There's nothing to tell. My mom died when I was 5. Car accident. My dad wasn't around. That's it. Lucien's gaze sharpened. Your mother's name? Mei Chun. The name hit the room like a spark in dry wood. One of the older counselors, with paper-thin skin and glowing amber eyes, leaned forward. Chun, he hissed. House of Fire and Thorns. Mara stared. What? Lucien's voice dropped lower. Dangerous. That house was destroyed 10 years ago. She frowned. Destroyed how? They were human alchemists, Lucien said slowly. Hunters. They forged the first enchanted silver metal capable of killing our kind. They vanished after the last war. I'm not part of that, Mara said quickly. My mom was a teacher. We moved a lot, but she stopped. Memories flickered, her mother hiding boxes, burning papers, saying we have to stay invisible. Lucien stepped closer. What if she wasn't hiding from debt collectors, Miss Chun? Mara's mouth went dry. The oldest vampire, the one with amber eyes, spoke again. If she is of the Chun line, then she carries what her ancestors carried, a resistance to our magic. That's why the ring didn't destroy her. Lucien's jaw tightened. Enough. He looked at Mara, his tone softer. You saved my son. That I cannot ignore. But if you are connected to the House of Fire and Thorns, then both our worlds are in danger. I didn't ask for any of this, Mara said quietly. No one ever does, Lucien replied. Before anyone could speak again, the great doors burst open. A guard rushed in, silver eyes wide. Your Majesty. A disturbance in the upper city. One of the hunters was seen near the old theater. Lucien's expression hardened. The same place she found Adrian. He turned to Mara. You're coming with me. Mara stared. Excuse me? I'm what? You may not realize it yet, Lucien said, already striding toward the exit, but you are part of this, whether you wish to be or not. Celeste appeared beside Mara, murmuring, "Do as he says. The hunters don't leave witnesses." Mara's stomach dropped. Perfect. Just perfect. They moved through tunnels so quickly Mara could barely keep up. When they emerged into the open air, dawn was just breaking, a pale, watery light spilling over the city. The streets were empty except for a few stray cats and puddles reflecting the pink sky. The old theater loomed ahead, its broken sign flickering faintly. Lucien's guards fanned out silently, their movements inhumanly fast. Mara hugged her borrowed cloak tighter. "This is where you found my son," Lucien said. "Yeah," she said softly. "Right there." She pointed to the dark corner near the brick wall. Lucien crouched, fingertips brushing the ground. "Residual energy," he murmured. "Magic left behind." Mara frowned. "You can feel that. See it." He stood, eyes glowing faintly blue. "The poison used on Adrian was not made by mortals. Someone within my court supplied it." Mara stared. "You mean someone here betrayed you?" Lucien met her eyes. "It seems so." A cold wind swept through the alley, carrying the faintest sound, a whisper that wasn't wind at all. Mara turned. There, on the brick wall where Adrian had lain, faint letters glowed in silvery script. "We found the heir. The bloodline lives." Mara's breath caught. "What does that mean?" Lucien's face went still. "It means they know you exist." Chapter 6, The Hunter's Trap. The ride back to the castle was silent. Lucien stared out the window, his reflection a pale ghost in the glass. Mara sat stiffly beside him, clutching her hands together. When the car stopped, he said without turning, "You must stay within the walls. No one outside this circle can know what you are." "What am I?" she demanded. "You keep talking in riddles." Lucien's gaze shifted toward her, sharp as broken glass. "A living key. And if they capture you, they will use you to end us all." Mara laughed once, bitterly. "Great. I was just hoping to pay rent this month." The corner of his mouth twitched. "You are remarkably calm for someone marked by death." "Trust me," she said, stepping out of the car, "panic's coming later." That evening, Mara sat in her room, pacing. She couldn't stop thinking about the message on the wall. "The bloodline lives." She remembered her mother's words when she was little. "If anyone ever asks about our family, you say nothing. Promise me, Mara." At the time, she thought it was paranoia. Now she wasn't so sure. Her phone buzzed suddenly. She pulled it from her pocket and froze. The caller ID said unknown number. "Hello," she said cautiously. "Mara Chun." The voice was low, smooth, and wrong, too calm, too familiar. "Who is this?" she asked. "You don't know me. But I know you. Your mother died for what she hid. Do you know what it was?" Her pulse quickened. "If this is a prank." "It's not," the voice said. "Look out your window." She turned. Across the street, a man stood in the shadows. Grey hoodie. Still. Watching her. "Who are you?" she whispered. "The one who can give you answers," he said. "But you'll have to come alone." The line went dead. Mara's phone slipped from her hand. Her chest tightened. Then, from the hallway outside, came the faintest whisper of movement. "Mara." She jumped. It was Adrian's voice. When she opened the door, he stood there in his nightclothes, eyes wide. "You can't go," he said. "I wasn't going anywhere," she lied. "You were," he said simply. "I can feel it." Her breath caught. "Feel it?" He nodded. "We're connected now. Because of the mark." She knelt to meet his gaze. "Adrian, listen. Whoever hurt you, they're still out there. They think I know something. I can't let them." He shook his head fiercely. "They want to use you. Father said if they find you, they'll make more silver." Her heart sank. "More silver? The stuff that poisoned you?" Adrian nodded. "It burns us. It kills even the old ones." Before she could answer, Celeste appeared at the end of the corridor, her expression tense. "Mara. Get away from the window." "Why?" "Because they're already here." Glass shattered behind them. A figure dropped through the window, mask glinting in the dim light. Another followed, landing silently. Hunters! Celeste shouted. Mara grabbed Adrian and ducked as a bolt of silver whistled past her ear, striking the wall and leaving a smoking hole. Run! Celeste commanded, drawing a blade that gleamed faintly blue. She moved like a blur, her strikes precise and deadly. Mara bolted down the hall, Adrian's small hand gripping hers. "This way," he cried, pulling her toward a staircase she hadn't noticed before. The walls shook with noise, shouts, metal clashing, the hiss of burning silver. They reached a door at the base of the stairs. Adrian placed his hand against it, and it opened on its own. "Secret passage," he said breathlessly. "Hurry." They slipped inside just as another explosion rocked the hallway. The tunnel was narrow and dark, the floor damp. They ran, their footsteps echoing. Mara's lungs burned, but she didn't stop. After what felt like forever, they reached another door. Adrian pushed it open and froze. They'd come out into the courtyard. Moonlight poured over everything, silver and cold. Dozens of vampires stood ready with weapons, their eyes glowing in the dark. Lucien was at the front, his coat swirling like smoke. "Mara," he barked. She stumbled forward with Adrian. "They're inside." "I know." His gaze flicked toward the shattered windows above. "You did well." A hunter appeared on the rooftop, crossbow raised. Lucien's hand flicked upward. The weapon flew from the man's grasp, torn apart midair. Then Lucien turned, his eyes burning like ice. "Take them below," he ordered. "Seal every entrance." Celeste appeared again, blood on her sleeve but unhurt. "It's done." Lucien looked at Mara. "They came for you." The message was bait. Mara shook her head, heart racing. "Then what do they want now?" He stepped closer, voice low and cold. "To finish what they started." The last thing Mara saw before Celeste pulled her away was Lucien turning toward the gates, his eyes blazing blue, and shadows rising from the ground at his command. And for the first time, Mara understood. The Vampire King wasn't just powerful. He was terrifying. Chapter 7, The Rescue and the Court's Judgment. The castle was alive with motion. Shadows rushed through corridors, messengers darted like streaks of smoke, and the sound of alarm bells echoed faintly through the stone walls. Mara clung to Adrian's hand as Celeste hurried them down a spiral stairway. Every torch they passed burned with a cold blue flame that seemed to watch them. Lucien's voice rolled like thunder somewhere above, sharp and commanding, directing guards to block entrances and reinforce wards. The weight of his power hung over the air like pressure before a storm. Mara's lungs still burned from running. She had never seen anything like the chaos unfolding around her. Vampires, who moved with smooth grace minutes earlier, now moved like streaks of lightning. The fear wasn't human panic, it was something older, deeper, colder. Celeste stopped in front of a set of tall metal doors. "Inside," she ordered. The room beyond was wide and circular, with high ceilings carved in spirals of silver and black. Dozens of eyes turned toward them, members of the council, pale and proud, gathered around a long table. Mara froze, feeling as though she'd walked into a lion's den. Lucien entered moments later, silent except for the click of his boots. He took the central seat, the others lowering their gazes as he did. "The intruders have been neutralized," he said. "But the threat remains." Then his eyes flicked toward Mara. "Bring her forward." Celeste's hand touched Mara's back gently. "Do not resist," she whispered. Mara's voice came out small. "What's happening?" "The court must see for themselves who you are," Celeste murmured. Mara stepped forward, heart hammering. She felt the heat of dozens of gazes weighing on her. Lucien's expression gave nothing away. "This," Lucien began, "is Mara Chun. The human who saved my son from death. The one whose blood resists the ring's fire. And the one the hunters marked tonight." Whispers swept through the room like wind in dry leaves. "She bears their mark. Impossible, no mortal can survive it. She was found with the air too convenient." Lucien raised his hand, and silence fell. "You may all speak freely," he said coolly. "But understand that she stands under my protection." A woman with snow-white hair leaned forward. Her eyes glowed the faint pink of dawn. "Protection or indulgence, my lord?" You risk your throne for a mortal. She saved the heir, Lucian replied evenly. Or delivered him, the woman countered. Mara felt heat rush to her face. I didn't deliver anyone. I just found him. That's it. Her voice broke the stillness like glass shattering. Every vampire in the room turned their gaze on her, their eyes bright as moonlight. Lucian's tone deepened. You will not speak to her as prey, he said softly. The white-haired woman inclined her head but did not lower her gaze. Then prove she isn't what they say she is. If she's truly innocent, let the ring judge her again. Lucian's expression didn't change, but the faintest tremor crossed his hand. Enough. She has the mark, another voice said, older, gravelly. If the hunters branded her, then their magic already knows her blood. The court cannot ignore that. Lucian's patience thinned. The court will ignore nothing, but neither will it forget who stopped my son's death. Adrian, sitting quietly near the corner, stood suddenly. She's not like them, he cried. She helped me. She's kind. The sound of his small voice seemed to shake the chamber more than any argument. Mara turned, startled. Adrian. He looked at the council defiantly. You call me heir, he said, then listen. I felt what she felt when the hunters came. I knew she was in danger. I felt it here. He pressed a hand to his chest. She's connected to me. The room fell into hushed disbelief. Lucian's eyes widened slightly before narrowing again. Enough, Adrian. The white-haired councilwoman leaned back. A psychic bond, she murmured. Between a vampire heir and a mortal. Impossible, unless their blood calls to each other. Lucian's voice snapped through the air. You will not finish that sentence. But the idea hung there unspoken yet heavy. Celeste whispered to Mara, they will not harm you tonight. But they will not forgive what they do not understand. The council's whispers faded to silence as Lucian stood. This session is adjourned, he declared. Mara Chun remains under royal protection. He met Mara's gaze, unreadable. You will stay in the castle. From this moment forward, you do not leave these walls without my consent. Mara's voice trembled. And if I refuse? Lucian's tone softened just slightly. Then you will die before the hunters reach you. The decision left no room for argument. That night, Mara stood on the balcony outside her new quarters, watching the strange city beneath the castle flicker with pale light. Her heart still raced from the council's accusations. Celeste joined her quietly. It could have gone worse, she said. Mara managed a weak laugh. You mean they didn't eat me alive? Yeah, I noticed. Celeste gave a small smile. They fear you, Miss Chun. Fear makes even immortals foolish. Mara looked out into the dark horizon. Fear of what? Of what your blood might awaken, Celeste said. And what it might destroy. Below, the torches flickered as the wind carried the first notes of a distant song, a lullaby echoing faintly through the stone halls. Adrian was dreaming again. Chapter 8, The Prince's Dreams. Mara woke to soft knocking. The clock near her bed read sometime past midnight. When she opened the door, Adrian stood there barefoot, his hair tousled, his gold eyes wide. I can't sleep, he whispered. Can I stay? Mara hesitated, then nodded. Come in. He sat at the edge of her bed, pulling his knees up. They keep saying I should stay away from you, he said quietly. That you'll bring danger. She sat beside him. Do you believe them? He shook his head. When I was hurt, I heard someone whispering. She said you would save me. Mara's heart tightened. She? Adrian nodded. A woman. She sang to me like a dream. And she told me not to be afraid. Mara remembered the song she'd heard in her own dreams. What did she sing? I don't know the words, he said, frowning. But I remember the tune. He began humming softly, a slow melody that rose and fell like a heartbeat. It sent chills up Mara's arms. She whispered, I've heard that before. Adrian looked up sharply. You have? In my dream. The same night you were brought here. He stared at her for a long time. Then maybe she's real. Maybe she's still trying to talk to us. Who do you think she is? He hesitated. My mother. The words hung between them, fragile and certain. Mara didn't know what to say. She remembered Lucien's guarded expression when he spoke of his wife, Elena. The way the court flinched at her name. Adrian continued quietly, "Father says she died when I was born. But sometimes I feel like she's nearby. Like she's waiting." He looked down at his hands. "The night I disappeared, I got a message. It said, 'Come to the old theater if you want to know the truth about your mother.'" Mara's breath caught. "The theater where I found you." Adrian nodded. "I thought maybe she was alive. But when I got there, everything went dark." "What do you remember?" "A woman's face," he said softly. "She was crying. She touched my cheek and said, 'Tell her about the library.'" "The library?" He nodded again, then stood suddenly. "Come on. I'll show you." "Adrian, it's the middle of the night. Please." Something in his tone, hope, fear, something too old for his small frame, made Mara nod. They moved quietly through the corridors. Adrian seemed to know exactly where to go. He led her through narrow staircases and hidden passages behind tapestries. Some doors opened at his touch, others melted away as if recognizing him. At last, they reached a wide wooden door carved with constellations. Adrian pushed it open, revealing a vast library that took Mara's breath away. Shelves climbed to impossible heights, filled with books whose pages glowed faintly. The air smelled of parchment and candle wax, dust and time. "Father doesn't come here anymore," Adrian said. "It was my mother's favorite place." They climbed a spiral stairway to a small alcove where a single desk stood, covered in papers and sketches. A faint shimmer surrounded it, like starlight trapped in glass. Adrian reached under a loose floorboard and pulled out a small, leather-bound journal. "This," he said, "is hers." Mara took it carefully. The pages were filled with delicate handwriting and drawings, maps, strange symbols, even chemical diagrams. Then she turned a page and froze. A photograph. A woman with dark hair and gentle eyes stood beside a younger Lucien. They looked happy. "That's her," Adrian whispered. "My mother." Mara's gaze fell to the next photo, and her breath hitched. Beside Elena stood another woman, almost identical except younger. The same dark hair. The same warm brown eyes. Below the picture was written, "Elena and her sister, May. 3 months before the attack." Mara's hands shook. "No." Adrian looked up. "What is it?" "My mother," she whispered. "Her name was May Chun." Adrian blinked. "That means—" "I'm her niece," Mara said, her voice breaking. "You and I, we're family." Before Adrian could speak, a voice came from the shadows. "Enough." Lucien stood in the doorway, his eyes glinting like steel. Behind him, General Thorne loomed, his expression grim. Mara hid the journal behind her back instinctively. "You followed us." Lucien stepped forward. "You were led here." He held out his hand. "The book, Miss Chun." "No," Mara said. "You already know what's in it. Tell me the truth." Lucien's tone grew quiet but dangerous. "Do not test me." "You knew," she said, trembling. "You knew my mother and never told me." Lucien's jaw tightened. "Because the truth would have killed you. Try me." He looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Your mother and her sister were both human. Hunters who betrayed their kind by loving us. Elena was poisoned for it. May vanished. I thought she was dead. My father said it was a car crash," Mara whispered. "Perhaps it was," Lucien said. "Or perhaps the hunters found her first. They have searched for your bloodline for years." Thorne's voice was low. "And now they've found it." Mara clutched the journal to her chest. "So what now? You going to lock me up?" Lucien's gaze softened briefly. "No. But I will not lose my son again." He turned to Thorne. "Double the guards. No one enters or leaves without my command." As they left, Adrian looked back at her, his gold eyes wide with worry. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Mara sank to her knees beside the desk, the journal heavy in her hands. Her world had shifted again, tilting into something she didn't recognize. She was no longer just a waitress who'd stumbled into the wrong alley. She was part of the very bloodline the vampires feared most and the hunters wanted destroyed. And somewhere between those two truths, A boy who called her family had become the only reason she stayed. Chapter 9. The Lost Journal. The library stayed very still after Lucian and Thorn left. Dust motes drifted in pale shafts of light from the crystal lamps, and the silence felt older than language itself. Mara sat on the floor, the weight of the small journal in her hands. She opened it again, turning pages slowly, careful not to tear the paper. The sketches showed a woman's delicate handwriting circling runes, formulas, and constellations. Some of the pages had tiny smudges, as though tears had once fallen there. Adrian knelt beside her. His face looked smaller under the lamplight, too young for the pain in his eyes. They said she was gone, he whispered. But this, it's her voice. Mara nodded. And my mother's, too. Together they studied the final pages. One was a map of the city, another showed a drawing of the crown and thorn crest with strange symbols beneath it. The last page contained music, 5 short lines with notes arranged in a haunting pattern. The lullaby. Mara brushed the page lightly. She hid something in this song. Adrian tilted his head. Maybe that's why I keep dreaming it. Maybe it's a message. Before she could answer, the lamps flickered. The air turned colder, and a faint hum rose from the walls. Someone's coming, Adrian said, standing quickly. They returned the book to its hiding place and slipped behind a row of tall shelves just as footsteps echoed on the marble floor. A group of vampires entered, 3 men and a woman, all cloaked, their voices sharp with argument. The king hides her, one hissed. A human in our halls, carrying the blood of our enemy. Another voice replied, smoother but just as dangerous. Careful. The air favors her. Strike too soon and we lose his loyalty. The woman's tone cut through the others. We cannot wait forever. The hunters know she lives. If they reach her first, the balance breaks. Mara's heart thudded. She looked at Adrian, who mouthed, we should go. They crept along the edge of the shelves toward a side door, but before they reached it, one of the cloaked men turned his head sharply. The faint gleam of his silver eyes flashed. Who's there? Mara froze. Adrian whispered something under his breath, a word in another language, and suddenly the nearest lamp burst into light so bright it filled the room. The vampires shouted, shielding their faces. Run. Adrian grabbed her hand. They raced through the doorway, down a winding staircase, and out into another corridor. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, Mara stared at him in disbelief. What was that? Adrian shrugged, trembling slightly. Something she taught me in a dream. It only works once. Mara crouched to his level. You can't keep using magic like that. They'll notice. They already have, he said softly. And if father finds out we were in the library, we'll deal with that later, she said. Right now we hide this journal somewhere safer. They slipped into her room and concealed the book beneath the floorboards under her bed. Adrian helped push the panel back into place, his small hands steady. When the last edge clicked shut, they both exhaled. Tomorrow, Mara said, we'll find someone who can translate those symbols. Maybe Celeste. Adrian frowned. You trust her? More than anyone else so far. He nodded reluctantly. She used to help my mother. Mara studied him. How do you know? I remember her voice from the songs. She used to sing harmony. He gave a shy smile. Not very well. Mara laughed softly despite the tension. The sound echoed through the quiet room, surprising both of them. For a moment, they could almost forget the danger outside. But that calm ended when heavy footsteps stopped outside the door. A guard's voice called, Miss Chun. His Majesty summons you. Adrian's smile faded. Go, he whispered. I'll stay here. Mara squeezed his shoulder. Be careful. Lucian waited for her in a smaller hall lined with stained glass windows. The colored light painted his pale face in shades of red and gold. You were in the library, he said without turning. Mara's throat tightened. You already knew? You left the wards trembling, he replied. Even the walls felt it. She hesitated. You said my mother was human. You never said she was your wife's sister. Lucian turned at that, his expression unreadable. I thought the truth would be kinder in fragments. Kinder, she repeated. To whom? To my son, he said quietly. To you. To what peace remains. Mara took a step closer. Your council wants me gone. They want what they always want, control. He regarded her steadily. But they will not touch you while I draw breath. She should have felt safe. Instead, the weight of his promise frightened her more. Lucien's voice softened. You are beginning to awaken something in him. In both of us. Elena's blood called to mine once. Now it calls again, through you. I don't know what that means, Mara whispered. Neither do I, he said. But the song she left, the lullaby, is not only music. It is a key. And the hunters already search for the door it opens. He paused, then added, tomorrow, I will show you why they fear it. That night Mara barely slept. Every sound in the castle seemed louder, the creak of doors, the sigh of wind through tunnels, the soft beat of wings somewhere beyond her window. The dream came again, a woman singing in the dark, her voice trembling but strong. This time the words were clearer. Light to bind, blood to see. The crown of thorns will set you free. Mara woke with the echo of the melody still on her lips. She didn't know it yet, but by morning the lullaby would no longer be just a dream. Chapter 10, House of Fire and Thorns. The next day began in silence. The usual hum of servants had vanished. Even the guards spoke in whispers. Celeste arrived early and escorted Mara through corridors she had never seen, narrow, slanting passages lined with iron symbols that shimmered faintly when they passed. Where are we going? Mara asked. To the Hall of Memory, Celeste replied. The king believes it's time you understood your mother's legacy. They reached a pair of tall bronze doors etched with scenes of stars and battles. Celeste pushed them open, and cold air rolled out like a sigh. Inside stretched a vast chamber filled with glowing orbs suspended in midair. Each orb pulsed softly, showing moving images, memories captured like living pictures. Lucien stood at the center, hands folded behind his back. These are the records of our wars, he said. Every betrayal, every alliance. Look. An orb drifted toward them and flared to life. Mara saw an image of the city above, long ago, its buildings new, its streets filled with both humans and vampires walking side by side. Then the image darkened. Armies appeared, banners blazing with a crest she recognized, the crown and thorns. The House of Chun, Lucien said. Your ancestors. In the vision, humans carried silver weapons that glowed with inner light. The air filled with fire and ash. Mara saw vampires burning, others retreating underground. The scene shifted to a younger Lucien standing on a battlefield, his face lined with fury and loss. They called it the War of Fire and Thorns, he continued. Your family forged the metal that ended thousands of lives. When it was over, Elena convinced me to grant them peace. She believed her sister could lead them away from bloodshed. He turned to her. She was right, for a time. The orb dimmed. Mara tried to speak but couldn't. Finally she managed, my mother never told me any of this. She wanted you free of it, Celeste said gently. But blood remembers. Lucien gestured toward another orb. It showed two women standing together, Elena and May. They smiled at each other, one holding a child. Adrian. Mara's eyes stung. So they were close. Lucien nodded. They were twins in all but name. When the hunters came for Elena, May fought them off long enough for Adrian to be hidden. She vanished soon after. He looked at Mara carefully. You carry her courage. And her defiance. Mara's voice wavered. Then why does your court hate me for it? Because they remember the war, not the peace that followed. He took a deep breath, something almost human in the gesture. You are the last of that line. The hunters believe your blood can remake the old silver. They will not stop until they find you. Mara looked down at her hands. The faint mark from the ring glowed softly beneath her skin. And if they do? Lucien met her gaze. Then both our worlds burn again. For a long time, none of them spoke. The orbs flickered, showing fragments of forgotten faces, battles, cities built and ruined. Finally Mara asked, why show me this now? Because ignorance is no longer safety, Lucien said. They will come again soon, and when they do, you must decide which side you stand on. Celeste stepped closer, her eyes thoughtful. There is more you should see, my lord, she said softly. The prophecy. Lucian hesitated, then nodded. One of the smaller orbs floated forward. Inside it shimmered words written in light, an old verse that pulsed with quiet rhythm. When fire joins the crown of night, the lost child will open the door. One blood will heal, one will fight. And peace will be war once more. Mara stared at it. What does it mean? Lucian's voice was low. Some believe it speaks of a human and a vampire bound by ancient blood, a bridge between worlds. She felt a chill run through her. You think that's me? I think, Lucian said, that you are the only one who can keep my son alive long enough to find out. They left the hall in silence. Outside, the castle's courtyard glimmered with frost. Adrian waited there, chasing sunlight with the eagerness of a boy who had seen too much darkness. When he saw Mara, he ran to her. You're smiling again, he said hopefully. Trying to, she replied, brushing his hair back. Your father just gave me a history lesson. Did it have a happy ending? Not yet. Lucian watched them from a short distance. The air between them felt fragile, like a new bridge over deep water. Celeste approached quietly. There is movement beyond the walls, she murmured to Lucian. The hunters have sent scouts. He nodded, his expression turning distant. Then the next chapter begins sooner than I hoped. That evening, Mara sat by her window again, the lullaby turning over in her thoughts. The melody seemed different now, less sorrowful, more like a riddle. She hummed softly, and as the last note faded, the mark on her palm glimmered faintly. Far below, Lucian stood on a balcony of his own, looking out over the sleeping city. He heard the faint echo of her song and closed his eyes. Light to bind, blood to see, he whispered, repeating the line she had dreamed. Celeste joined him. Do you still believe she is the bridge? I believe she is the choice, he said. And soon, she will have to make it. In her chamber above, unaware that he listened, Mara pressed her hand to the window. Outside, the last of the twilight bled away, leaving only stars, bright, distant, and watching. The lullaby lingered in the stillness, half hope, half warning, carrying its secret toward whatever dawn awaited them all. Chapter 11, The Plan, Bait for Blood. The sky above the hidden city never changed, yet the air inside the castle felt heavier. Word had spread, hunters were moving again, closer each night. Every corridor whispered with worry. Guards lined the halls like silent statues. Mara couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, tracing the faint crest still glowing on her palm. Lucian's words from the previous day haunted her. You must decide which side you stand on. She wasn't ready to choose. Every path felt like betrayal. When dawn's first light seeped through the glass, Celeste arrived. His Majesty requests you in the council chamber. Mara followed her through dim corridors lit by blue flames. The air smelled faintly of smoke and iron. When the doors opened, she saw Lucian standing beside a long table, a map spread before him. Thorn and several commanders surrounded it. Lucian looked up. Mara. Sit. She obeyed, wary. Adrian stood beside him, clutching a small carved figurine, something his mother must have given him. Lucian placed a small metal case on the table and opened it. Inside lay a vial of silver liquid, swirling like living light. Mara frowned. Is that the same poison used on Adrian? Lucian said. Enchanted silver. The hunters somehow recreated it. That means they've found the formula again, or someone who remembers it. Someone like me? She asked quietly. Lucian met her gaze. Possibly. Which is why we must act before they find the source. Thorn leaned forward. We know they're gathering near the upper city docks. They use human smugglers as cover. If we strike there, we can intercept their next shipment of enchanted metal. Mara looked between them. And what exactly does this have to do with me? Lucian's voice turned calm but heavy. They will expect us to hide you. So we will do the opposite. She blinked. You want me to walk into their trap? Not alone, Lucian said. Celeste and my best guard will stay close. But you must be seen. They will come for you, and when they do, we will follow them back to whoever commands them. Mara stared at the map. The docks marked in red looked far too close to the world she'd known, the same streets she used to walk home from her diner. "You're asking me to risk my life. I am asking you to save many," Lucien said softly. Adrian stepped closer. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. Mara smiled faintly. "If this can stop them, maybe I do." Lucien's expression softened for the briefest moment. "Prepare her," he told Celeste. "We move tonight." That evening, the castle shifted into quiet readiness. Mara stood before a mirror, adjusting the dark coat Celeste had given her, woven with threads of silver and shadow. It wasn't armor, but it felt close. Celeste tied her hair back. "Keep your head down. Don't speak unless spoken to. If things turn, call my name." "Simple enough," Mara said with forced calm. Celeste's tone softened. "You remind me of her, you know. Elena." She faced fear with humor too. Mara swallowed. "Then maybe we're both fools." Celeste's lips curved. "Perhaps. But the brave kind." The docks lay quiet under a rising moon. Cargo crates lined the pier, and the air smelled of salt and smoke. Mara stood near the end of the walkway, pretending to study a ledger. Celeste lingered nearby, her face shadowed beneath her hood. It began as a whisper, a faint ripple in the water, the creak of ropes. Then the sound of footsteps. 5 figures appeared, moving with practiced silence. Their clothes were ordinary, but their eyes gleamed faintly in the dark. One of them, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, spoke first. "Miss Chun." Mara's grip on the ledger tightened. "Who's asking?" "Someone who knew your mother," he said. Her breath caught. "You're lying." "Am I?" He stepped closer. "She worked with us once. She believed the vampires could be reasoned with. But they never keep peace, do they?" Celeste shifted slightly, ready. Mara forced her voice steady. "What do you want from me?" "The formula," the man said simply. "You carry it in your blood. Give us what we need, and you'll live." Before Mara could answer, something bright streaked across the sky, a silent signal. The man's eyes flashed silver white. "They're here," he hissed. Shadows dropped from the rooftops, Lucien's guards. Chaos erupted. Celeste pulled Mara behind a crate as smoke filled the air. The clash of steel rang out, shouts echoing through the fog. Mara saw flashes of movement, Lucien himself stepping from the darkness, faster than sight, his blade glowing faintly. Within seconds, the attackers scattered. Some fled toward the alleys, others simply vanished. Lucien grabbed Mara's arm, his eyes fierce. "Did they speak to you?" "Only to say they knew my mother," she gasped. He looked toward the fleeing shadows. "Then we have our lead." Celeste knelt beside one of the fallen men, retrieving a small medallion from his neck. The crest was the same crown and thorns, but twisted, inverted. Lucien took it, his jaw tightening. "They've corrupted the old symbol. The hunters have a new leader." "Who?" Mara asked. Lucien's gaze turned distant. "Your father." The words landed like thunder. Mara's mind reeled. "No. My father died years ago." Lucien's voice stayed quiet, but his eyes told her he believed it. "He survived, and he's the one who calls himself the Hunter King now." That night, Mara couldn't rest. The truth gnawed at her. Her father, alive, leading the very people who wanted her blood. The man who once told her stories before bed had become the enemy of everything she now protected. Adrian found her sitting in the corridor outside her chamber. "You heard," he said softly. "I wish I hadn't." He sat beside her. "Do you think he really believes what he's doing is right?" "I don't know," she said. "But if he started this war, I have to end it." Adrian looked at her seriously. "Then we end it together." Chapter 12. The Ambush at Pier 19. The next evening came too quickly. Lucien's spies traced the hunters' movement to Pier 19, an abandoned part of the upper docks. It was where the enchanted silver was forged and smuggled. If they destroyed it, they could cut the hunters' supply. Mara insisted on coming. "You said they're after me," she told Lucien. "Then let me be the reason you find them." He hesitated, then nodded. "You have your mother's stubbornness. I'll take that as a compliment." It wasn't meant as one, he said, but the faintest smile betrayed him. Pier 19 was a skeleton of wood and rusted steel, shrouded in mist. Old ships swayed at their moorings, their hulls creaking softly. The group moved quietly, Lucien, Celeste, Thorn, and Mara. Adrian had been ordered to stay behind, but Mara could still feel his worry pressing against her thoughts like a heartbeat out of sync with her own. Celeste crouched near the edge of the pier. There, see the glow. Through the fog, faint light shimmered from a warehouse door. Lucien nodded. That's their forge. He turned to Mara. Stay behind me. No heroics. Wouldn't dream of it, she murmured. They advanced silently. The door opened with a groan. Inside, the air shimmered with heat and the smell of metal. Rows of vats glowed, and humans worked alongside cloaked figures, hunters and allies both. Then a voice rang out. So, the king arrives himself. From the shadows stepped a man with dark hair streaked with grey, his eyes sharp and steady. His face was familiar, painfully so. Mara's breath caught. Dad. He smiled faintly. Mara. You look like her. Like May. Lucien's eyes narrowed. So it's true. Mr. Chun, her father, though he no longer felt like one, lifted his hand. You shouldn't have brought her here, Vale. She doesn't belong to your world. She belongs to neither of ours now, Lucien said evenly. Her father's gaze softened when it turned to her. You think they care about you, Mara? You think they'll let you live once they've used you? Mara's voice trembled. You're killing people. I'm saving them, he said. Your mother tried to end this war through peace. She failed. I won't. He gestured toward one of the vats. This metal will free us from them forever. Lucien stepped forward, power radiating from him like heat. You're forging destruction. Justice, her father corrected. For your crimes. For her death. For a moment, the silence between them was unbearable. Then Mara said quietly, if Mom were here, she'd stop you. Her father looked at her, hurt flickering in his eyes. If she were here, she'd understand. Lucien's voice cut through the moment. You've made your choice. And then, everything happened at once. One of the vats burst, flooding the air with silver light. The ground trembled. Hunters scattered, shouting. Lucien pulled Mara back as the warehouse shuddered. Her father's voice echoed through the chaos. Leave her. She's not yours to save. The ceiling cracked, a beam falling toward her. Lucien moved faster than thought, pulling her aside. The beam struck the floor, sending up a flash of sparks. Through the haze, Mara saw her father vanish into the smoke, his cloak trailing like shadow. When the light faded, the forge was gone, collapsed into a pit of molten silver. Lucien stood among the ruins, breathing hard but uninjured. Celeste appeared beside him, covered in ash. He escaped, she said. I know, Lucien replied, his tone cold. But his weapon is gone. Mara stared at the place where her father had stood. The ache in her chest felt too deep for tears. Celeste touched her shoulder. You did what you had to do. No, Mara whispered. This isn't over. Lucien turned toward her. No. It's only beginning. Outside, dawn broke over the ruined pier. The sunlight caught the shards of shattered silver, scattering them like fallen stars across the water. Mara stood at the edge, the wind in her hair, watching the light ripple and fade. She thought of her mother's song, of her father's eyes, of Adrian waiting somewhere far below. And for the first time, she understood what the lullaby meant. Light to bind, blood to see. Her path was clear now, not as prey, but as the bridge between the world she came from and the one she could no longer escape. Chapter 13, The Fall of the Castle. The storm began at dusk. Not a natural one, its clouds were dark but glimmered with silver light, pulsing in rhythm like a heartbeat. From the balconies of the castle, it looked as though the sky itself had cracked open. Mara stood beside Celeste on the highest terrace. The air smelled of metal and rain. They're coming again, aren't they? She asked. Celeste nodded grimly. The hunters lost their forge, but not their fury. They'll strike tonight. Mara felt a shiver travel down her spine. And my father? No sign of him. But he will come, Celeste said. A man who builds storms never hides from the lightning. Below, the city buzzed with quiet panic. Lanterns flickered. Guards lined the streets leading up to the gates. Somewhere deeper inside the castle, Lucian was preparing for battle. When Mara went to find him, she discovered him in the throne room, adjusting a pair of ruined blades. His calm was unnerving. "You're expecting them to breach the walls," she said. "I am expecting them to try," he replied. Mara hesitated, watching the faint light run along the blade's edge. "You don't have to face him alone." Lucian's gaze met hers, cold steel softened by something almost human. "I faced him once already. He took my wife. I will not allow him to take my son." "You might lose both if you fight him in anger," she said quietly. He paused, studying her. "You speak like Elena used to." "I'm not her." "No," Lucian said, "but her blood runs through you, and it carries her courage." Before she could reply, the sound of bells tore through the air. 3 sharp notes, the castle's signal for breach. Celeste rushed in, her expression tight. "They're at the gates. Hundreds. Human soldiers and," she hesitated. "And something else." Lucian drew his swords. "Sound the wards. Protect the boy." The battle began not with shouting, but with silence. A wave of pressure hit the castle as the hunter's magic met the wards protecting the walls. The runes glowed, resisting, then cracked one by one. From the courtyard, Mara could see shapes moving through the mist, figures in long coats carrying crossbows that shone with silver. The storm above them pulsed brighter with every step they took. Celeste grabbed Mara's wrist. "Inside. Quickly." But Mara stopped short. On the balcony overlooking the main hall stood Adrian, eyes wide, clutching the railing. "Adrian," she called. He didn't move. Lightning flashed, and for an instant, Mara saw what he was staring at. A single figure approached through the storm, untouched by the rain. Her father. The years had changed him, his hair was streaked with white, and the warmth she remembered had turned to iron. He stopped just beyond the gate and raised a silver staff. "Lucian Vale," his voice rang out. "Bring me the girl, and I'll spare your son." Lucian stepped into the light, the storm painting his black coat in streaks of silver. "You already tried that lie once," he said. "You won't again." Her father's eyes moved to Mara. "You shouldn't stand beside him, Mara. He killed your mother." The words hit her like a blow. "That's not true," she said, though doubt scraped her throat raw. Lucian didn't deny it quickly enough, and her father smiled. "Ask him, then." Before she could speak, the first bolt of silver struck the wall. It exploded in a burst of light. The battle began. The next hour blurred into chaos. The hunters surged through the broken gates, clashing with Lucian's guards. The courtyard filled with flashes of light and echoing roars as spells struck stone. Mara was pulled toward safety by Celeste, but every step felt wrong. Her father's army filled the courtyard, and she caught glimpses of Lucian moving through them like shadow and flame. He fought with terrifying grace, every motion deliberate. Adrian refused to hide. He clutched his mother's locket, whispering words Mara couldn't hear, his eyes glowing faintly gold. The air shimmered around him. "Mara," Celeste said sharply, "get him below. Now. I can't leave Lucian out there." "You can, and you must. The king can fight. The boy cannot." Mara pulled Adrian away just as another explosion shook the ground. They ran through corridors that trembled with the force of battle. When they reached the lower tunnels, Adrian suddenly stopped. "I can feel him," he whispered. "Your father?" "No. The other one, the one who made the silver burn. He's here." Mara didn't understand, but before she could ask, the tunnel's end burst open, dust and rock flying. Silhouetted against the falling debris stood a tall figure in a dark coat. "General Thorne." "Celeste." Mara shouted. Celeste drew her blade and stepped in front of them. "Get the air out." But Thorne only smiled. "I wouldn't, if I were you. The boy stays." His eyes flashed with unnatural light, silver threaded with red. Mara realized with horror that he'd been turned by the hunter's poison, neither vampire nor human anymore. Celeste lunged. Their blades met, the sound sharp as thunder. Adrian grabbed Mara's hand. Come on. They ran through another passage as the fight raged behind them. When they burst into the old chapel, the air was thick with dust. Mara turned just in time to see Thorn throw Celeste aside. He stepped toward them, smiling. So this is the blood they all whisper about. Stay away from him, she said, stepping in front of Adrian. He raised his blade. You can't protect him. But before he could strike, Lucien appeared at the doorway, eyes blazing with light. The storm outside answered him. A crack of thunder shook the walls. Thorn, he said, his voice low. You swore your loyalty once. Now you'll die for your treachery. Thorn lunged, but Lucien met him halfway. The clash of their swords sent shockwaves through the air. Mara pulled Adrian to cover behind a broken column. When silence finally returned, Thorn lay motionless, and Lucien's sword dripped with faint silver light. He looked toward Mara. Is the boy hurt? She shook her head. No. But the castle. I know. His voice softened. It's falling. By dawn, the fighting had stopped. The hunters had been pushed back, their storm broken. But the castle was wounded, whole wings were gone, the gates shattered. Celeste limped toward them, holding her arm. They'll regroup, she said. We need to move the court. Lucien nodded. To the mountains. The old fortress still stands. Mara looked out at the rising sun. What about my father? Lucien's expression darkened. He escaped. She clenched her fists. Then he'll come again. Yes, Lucien said. And next time, he won't come for me. His gaze shifted toward Adrian and then to her. He'll come for you both. Chapter 14, The Duel of Kings. The exodus from the ruined castle began at nightfall. Carts filled with records, wounded guards, and sacred relics wound through the secret tunnels that led into the mountain passes. Mara rode beside Adrian in silence, her thoughts heavy with guilt. The castle's fall felt like her fault, her blood, her family's legacy, the law that had drawn the war back to them. Lucien rode ahead, his cloak trailing behind him like a shadow. The weight of leadership had never seemed heavier on his shoulders. When they reached the old fortress, a citadel carved into the mountain's heart, it felt like stepping into another century. The halls were colder, the air older. That night, Lucien called a gathering in the great hall. The surviving council members stood around a cracked stone table, their faces pale. Lucien began calmly. We have lost our home, but not our purpose. The hunters will come again, and when they do, we will be ready. But one voice broke through the murmurs, General Cassian, one of Lucien's oldest allies. Ready, he said bitterly. You mean enslaved? Look around you, my lord. Half our army is gone. The humans have found our weakness, and it wears her face. He pointed toward Mara. The room fell silent. Lucien's gaze turned cold. Watch your words. I speak truth, Cassian said. The child's presence brings ruin. And now you protect her. You'd trade our safety for a ghost's blood. Adrian flinched. She saved me. Cassian ignored him. We kneel to fear because our king is blinded by the past. Lucien's hand tightened on the table. You question my judgment. Cassian's eyes glowed faintly red. I challenge it. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Lucien straightened slowly. You would invoke the right. Cassian stepped forward. At dawn. The old law of their kind allowed a formal duel, a test of leadership where power alone decided right from wrong. It hadn't been invoked for a century. Lucien's voice was quiet. Very well. The next morning, the courtyard filled with mist. Mara stood beside Adrian on the balcony above, her heart pounding. Celeste stood near them, tense. Below, Lucien and Cassian faced each other in the open circle. No weapons at first, only will. When the signal sounded, the air itself seemed to bend. Shadows curled around Lucien's hands, while fire lit Cassian's eyes. They moved faster than thought, their strikes shaking the ground. It was not rage that fueled Lucien, it was purpose. Every motion was precise, each step a memory of centuries defending what he loved. Cassian faltered, his strength breaking under Lucien's calm. You fight for a ghost, he shouted. Lucien's answer was a whisper that carried through the air. I fight for the living. He struck once more, disarming his opponent. The clash ended in a burst of light. When it cleared, Cassian knelt, defeated. The court bowed in silence. Lucian dropped his weapon and turned away. "No more divisions," he said. "From this moment, we stand together or not at all." Then his gaze lifted to the balcony, meeting Mara's eyes. The message was clear: the time for hiding was over. That night, the fortress was quiet again. Adrian slept, exhausted from fear and awe. Mara sat by the fire, staring at her reflection in the silver mirror on the wall. Lucian entered silently. His coat still bore the dust of battle, but his expression was gentler than she'd ever seen. "You shouldn't have watched," he said. "I had to," she replied. "You fought for them and for me." He gave a small, tired smile. "You remind me why peace is worth the pain." Mara looked down. Cassian was right about one thing. "I brought this." Lucian shook his head. "You didn't bring the war. You revealed the truth it hid." She met his gaze. "Then what happens now?" "Now," he said, "we prepare. Your father will not stop until he has what he wants. But he underestimates you." "Maybe he knows me better than you do," she said quietly. "Perhaps," Lucian admitted. "But I know what you're becoming." He turned toward the window where the stars glittered faintly over the snow. "When this ends, Mara, it will not be because one side destroys the other. It will be because you find a way neither of us can see yet." As he left, the words hung in the air like a promise. Mara looked down at her palm, where the faint crest shimmered again, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Outside, the mountain winds carried a single line of the lullaby, faint but clear. "One blood will heal, one will fight." And for the first time, she wondered which of those she would become. Chapter 15, The Revelation of Song. Days after Cassion's defeat, the fortress had fallen into an uneasy calm. The walls still trembled from the storm that had shattered their home, yet within the silence came a strange peace, a breath before another war. Mara spent most of her time in the old library, deciphering her mother's journal and Elena's notes. Celeste visited often, bringing her tea and quiet company. The court kept its distance, though the whispers had less venom now. Lucian had retreated into long strategy meetings. Every night, Mara caught a glimpse of him walking the battlements alone, his cloak caught by the wind. He looked like a man carrying an entire world on his shoulders. But beneath that calm, danger stirred. Reports came of new attacks in distant villages, hunters striking faster than ever, leaving symbols drawn in silver on doors. Adrian's sleep worsened with each night. One evening, Mara heard him cry out and hurried to his chamber. He sat up, gasping, his face pale. "They're calling her name," he said. "Who?" "The hunters. In my dreams, they sing the lullaby, but wrong. They twist the words." Mara sat beside him. "Tell me exactly what you heard." He closed his eyes, repeating softly. "Light to blind, blood to bleed. The crown of night will never heed." "That's the reverse," she said quietly. "It's a curse instead of a key." Adrian nodded, his voice shaking. "They're trying to open something they shouldn't." Before she could ask more, Lucian entered, his presence filling the room. "I felt the disturbance," he said. The wards flickered again. Mara stood. "The lullaby, it's changing. The hunters must be using it somehow." Lucian's jaw tightened. "Then we'll stop them before they finish." He looked at her directly. "You said your mother encoded something in that song. Could it be a location?" Mara hesitated, glancing toward the journal on the table. "There's a page that matches the rhythm of the notes, like coordinates. But it's incomplete." Adrian spoke softly. "Maybe the rest is inside the song itself." Lucian frowned. "Explain." "When she sang to me," Adrian said, "I saw shapes, stars, maybe. They changed with each verse." Mara's eyes widened. "Constellations. The song isn't just music, it's a map." Lucian's expression changed, a flicker of realization. "Then it leads to where the original silver was forged." Celeste appeared at the door. "That place was sealed centuries ago. No one knows its path." Lucian turned to Mara. "Except her." The next day, they prepared to follow the song's trail. Lucien insisted on going himself, along with Mara, Adrian, and Celeste. The rest of the court would stay behind, rebuilding the fortress. They set out before dusk, moving through forests that smelled of pine and frost. The stars began to appear one by one, faint at first, then bright and sharp. Mara hummed the lullaby softly, watching how the stars shifted as if responding. When she reached the final line, a low hum rippled through the air. Ahead, the trees parted to reveal a clearing with stone pillars arranged in a perfect circle. "This is it," she whispered. Lucien stepped forward, tracing a mark on one of the stones. Ancient script. The same language as the prophecy. Celeste knelt, brushing moss from another pillar. "And blood here old, but not human." Adrian's eyes glowed faintly as he touched the center stone. "It feels like her. Like mother." The ground beneath them vibrated, and the stones began to hum. Mara backed up as the air shimmered with light. Lucien pulled Adrian back just as the center cracked open, revealing a spiral staircase descending into the earth. Cold air rose from below, carrying the faint sound of the lullaby echoing from unseen walls. Mara swallowed hard. "We go down." Lucien nodded. "Carefully." The stairway led to a vast underground hall. The walls were covered in runes, and at its center stood a basin filled with silver liquid that glowed like moonlight. The air hummed with power. Celeste whispered, "The Forge of Thorns." Lucien approached slowly, his reflection warping in the basin's surface. "This is where the first silver was born." Mara stepped closer, her hand trembling as she reached out. The mark on her palm began to glow again, casting red light over the metal. "It reacts to you," Lucien said. Mara nodded, her voice soft. "It knows my blood." Adrian touched her sleeve. "You can change it. Turn it back." "How?" "Sing." She hesitated. "I don't remember all the words." "Then let your heart fill the rest," Lucien said. Mara began to sing softly. The first notes trembled, but the air itself seemed to listen. The silver rippled, shifting color from bright white to gold, then to soft crimson. The runes on the walls glowed. The lullaby filled the cavern, blending sorrow and hope into one. But as the final note faded, another voice answered, one that froze her blood. "Well done, daughter." From the shadows emerged her father. His cloak was torn, his face marked by exhaustion but still fierce. Behind him stood armed hunters. Lucien moved instinctively, stepping between him and Mara. "You followed us." "I led you," Mr. Chun said. Every note she sang, every step she took, it brought us here. The forge belongs to humanity again. "It belongs to no one," Mara said, her voice shaking. He smiled sadly. "You sound just like her." Then he raised his hand, and silver light burst from the basin, striking the walls. The room trembled as the forge awakened. Celeste pulled Adrian behind a pillar. His trying to reignite the curse. Lucien called out, "Mara, stop him." She took a step forward. "Dad, please. This isn't what Mom wanted." "Your mother died believing in them," he said, pointing at Lucien. "And you will die the same if you stay." "No," she whispered. "I'll live for both of you." She reached for the basin again and sang the final line of the true lullaby. The silver turned to light, rising like mist. The hunters shielded their eyes. Her father's expression softened, pain, pride, and despair blending all at once, before the light swallowed everything. When it cleared, the hunters were gone. The forge was silent once more. Lucien stood beside her, steadying her shoulder. "You've done it," he said. But Mara stared at the place her father had stood, her heart breaking. "No," she whispered. "I think I've only begun something new." Chapter 16. The Hunter Queen Rises. The journey back to the fortress was quiet. None of them spoke much. Adrian slept most of the way, his small hand still holding Mara's sleeve as if afraid she'd vanish. When they arrived, the council gathered again. Lucien announced that the forge had been sealed forever, its power destroyed. But whispers spread faster than reassurance ever could. They said the hunters had been seen retreating north. Others said a new leader had already risen among them, a figure who could command the silver from miles away. Mara tried not to listen. She spent her days with Adrian, helping him study, trying to bring a semblance of peace back to their strange lives. But at night, the dreams came again, visions of her father walking through silver fire, his eyes bright with purpose. One evening, Celeste entered Mara's room quietly. "You haven't eaten," she said. Mara looked up from the journal she'd been rewriting. "I'm not hungry." Celeste sighed. "He made his choice. You made yours. The world won't wait for grief to end." "I know," Mara said. "But I can't shake the feeling he's still out there." Celeste hesitated, then set a folded parchment on the table. "This came from our spies. It bears his seal." Mara's hands trembled as she opened it. The message was short. "You stopped me once. But the silver sings still. When it finds a voice, the world will listen. J. Chun." Mara stared at the letter. "His building again." Lucian entered then, his expression grave. "We've confirmed the same. His rallying what remains of the hunters in the far north. They call him the Herald now." "The Herald of what?" Mara asked. Lucian met her eyes. "Of a new dawn for them and an end for us." Celeste looked between them. "Then what's our move?" Lucian turned toward the window, where the moon hung low. "We prepare for war. But this time, not with swords." Mara frowned. "Then how?" "With truth," Lucian said. "If the world above knew what truly hides in its shadows, neither side could rule through fear." "You mean reveal everything? Vampires, hunters, me?" "Yes," Lucian said simply. "Let light judge what blood never could." The idea terrified her. But something deep inside knew he was right. Secrets had built this war, maybe only truth could end it. She looked down at the journal in her hands, the legacy of her mother and aunt, their love and pain written in ink and lullabies. "I'll help you," she said finally. "But on one condition." Lucian tilted his head. "Name it." "When it's over," Mara said softly, "no more crowns. No more kings or hunters. Just people trying to live." Lucian's eyes softened. "Agreed." Celeste smiled faintly. "You may regret promising that, my lord." "Perhaps," he said. "But if anyone can make a world without thrones, it's her." Weeks passed. Letters were sent to the human governments, coded messages disguised as research findings. Rumors began to spread of nightkind living among humanity not as monsters, but as survivors of an old curse. Mara worked tirelessly beside Lucian, translating the journals, decoding the lullaby into written form. Adrian's laughter slowly returned, filling the stone halls with life again. But in quiet moments, Mara still caught herself humming the song, and sometimes, when she reached the final line, she felt the faintest tremor in the air, as though somewhere far away, another voice was humming with her. The silver wasn't gone. It was waiting. One morning, Lucian called her to the main balcony. The air was clear, the first true sunrise they had seen in weeks. "The sky looks normal again," she said. "For now," Lucian replied. "Peace is fragile. But it's a start." He looked at her, the faintest trace of a smile on his lips. "You've done what neither of us could, turned a weapon into hope." Mara smiled back, though her eyes stung. "Hope's a strange kind of weapon too." Adrian joined them, holding a single silver coin he'd found among the ruins. "I kept it," he said. "To remember what not to make again." Lucian nodded, pride flickering in his eyes. As the three of them watched the sun rise, its light washed over the castle, chasing away the shadows. The air felt lighter, almost human. Mara thought of her mother, her father, the song that had begun it all. Maybe, she realized, it wasn't just a lullaby. Maybe it was a promise that light and blood could coexist without destruction. And though the wars of night were far from over, the first dawn in centuries had finally broken. Chapter 17, Blood Pact. The sun had not yet risen when the fortress bells tolled. Their deep, steady sound rolled through the mountains like thunder, summoning every soul within the walls. Mara woke instantly, heart racing, already knowing what it meant. The hunters were on the move again. She dressed quickly, throwing her cloak over her shoulders, and ran to the balcony overlooking the valley. From there she could see torches, hundreds of them, snaking through the dark below. The hunters were advancing under banners painted with the crown and thorn crest. Celeste appeared behind her. They've reached the outer ridge, she said. Your father leads them himself. Mara's stomach twisted. How did they find us so soon? They didn't, Lucien said as he joined them. They followed the light from the forge's awakening. Even sealed, it called to them. He turned to her, eyes calm but heavy. This time, there is no retreat. If we flee, they will hunt us forever. If we stand, we can end this. Mara met his gaze. Then we stand. Lucien nodded once. I hoped you'd say that. Within an hour, the fortress was alive with movement. Guards lined the walls, bowstrings drawn, old wards flared to life across the stone, glowing faintly blue. The air vibrated with the hum of ancient magic. Adrian stood beside Mara, his small face pale but determined. He'll come for you first, he said. I know, she said softly. But I'm not running. Celeste handed her a blade, a slender weapon of dark metal, etched with runes. Forged from moon steel, she said. It won't harm you, but it can defend you from both kinds of blood. Mara took it, the weight comforting in her palm. What about you? Celeste smiled faintly. I'll be where I always am, between chaos and consequence. Lucien gave quiet orders to his commanders, then turned to Mara and Adrian. Stay inside the courtyard until I give the signal. If the wards fall, head for the chapel beneath the tower. Lucien, Mara began. He cut her off gently. If this is the last dawn, I'd rather meet it standing beside you than hiding from it. Before she could answer, the first horn echoed across the valley. The battle began like a storm breaking open the sky. Arrows streaked through the air, bursts of light clashed against shadow. The hunters advanced in formation, their weapons gleaming with silver light. Lucien's forces met them halfway, moving with the precision of a tide drawn by gravity. From her place inside the courtyard, Mara watched in awe and dread. Every flash of Lucien's blade was a line of light, every gesture of his hand sent waves of darkness sweeping across the field. But the hunters were relentless. They moved not as soldiers but as believers. For them, this was holy war. Adrian clutched the locket at his chest. It's not just them, he whispered. Something else is coming. Mara followed his gaze. The sky had begun to change. Clouds twisted into a spiral, silver threads streaking through them. The same light that had awakened the forge now burned above them, spreading like a wound in the sky. Lucien looked up and froze. His opened the gate. What gate? Mara called. The one your blood sealed, he shouted back. And then she saw him, her father, standing on the far hill, his staff raised, the same silver fire burning around him. His army faltered behind him as the ground itself began to crack. Celeste shouted, his trying to merge the realms. A roar of wind nearly knocked Mara from her feet. The air filled with fragments of light, swirling faster and faster. Through the shimmer, she glimpsed shapes, shadowy forms like spirits, neither human nor vampire. Lucien ran to her side. He'll destroy both worlds if he completes it. Then how do we stop him? She yelled over the storm. He looked at her, eyes glowing. We stop him together. Your blood can undo what his awakens. He drew his blade across his palm, and dark blood welled up. Our bond began the moment you called me, he said. Let it finish what your mother started. Mara hesitated. A blood pact. Lucien nodded. Life for life. Shared power. But once done, it cannot be undone. Adrian stepped forward, his voice shaking. If you do this, you'll both change. Lucien's tone was gentle. We already have. Mara took a deep breath, then drew her blade lightly across her hand. The cut stung, and her blood shimmered gold-red in the air. She pressed her palm to Lucien's, the light and shadow meeting between them. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the world shifted. The sky flared, the earth trembled, and every living creature in the valley felt the surge of power. The blood of a human and the essence of a vampire intertwined, forming a bridge neither light nor dark. Mara gasped as her vision filled with stars. She saw memories that weren't hers, Lucien's centuries of solitude, Elena's laughter, the wars that carved their world. And through it all, she felt a single truth pulsing at its center: they were never meant to be enemies. When the light faded, she stood changed. Her eyes gleamed faint gold, her heartbeat slower but stronger. Lucien's voice was low. "Can you still hear it?" "The song," she whispered. "It's louder now." Above them, the storm howled. Her father's voice echoed through the wind. "You've betrayed your blood." "No," Mara called back. "I've redeemed it." She lifted her hand, and the light from her mark flared across the valley. The silver glow faltered. The gate began to close. Her father screamed her name once, the sound breaking like glass, before the light swallowed him and the hunters around him. And then, silence. When the wind finally died, dawn was breaking. The sky cleared, revealing pale gold light spilling over the mountains. The hunters were gone. The battlefield lay still, scattered with remnants of broken silver and fading smoke. Mara sank to her knees, exhausted. Lucien caught her before she fell. "It's over," he said quietly. She looked toward the horizon. "No," she said softly. "It's beginning." Chapter 18, The Heir's Guardian. Weeks passed before the world found its balance again. The fortress, once dark and cold, began to feel alive. Light filled its halls where torches used to burn. The surviving council members pledged loyalty anew, not to a throne but to a new covenant, one that would unite both worlds through truth rather than secrecy. Mara stood at the heart of it all, no longer the waitress who had stumbled into an alley. She wore no crown, but her presence commanded respect. The mark on her palm had faded to a faint scar, yet when the sun touched it, it shimmered softly. Lucien met with human emissaries in daylight now, something no vampire had done for centuries. The world above had begun to whisper of night-kind diplomacy, unsure whether to fear or believe. Celeste oversaw the rebuilding, her sharp voice echoing through the halls. "If peace is a myth," she said dryly, "then at least ours will have beautiful architecture." Adrien spent his days studying under both vampire scholars and human historians. His laughter filled the corridors, a sound that made everyone pause with quiet hope. Mara often watched him from the courtyard, where he practiced fencing with a wooden sword far too big for him. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, Adrien ran up to her. "Father says we'll visit the city soon," he said breathlessly. "In daylight." Mara smiled. "That's a brave promise." "He says you made it possible," Adrien said. "You and Mother." Mara crouched, brushing his hair from his eyes. "Your mother gave her life for peace. I only followed her song." He grinned. "Then you're both heroes." "Maybe," she said softly. "Or maybe just stubborn." Lucien approached then, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it. "He's right," he said quietly. "You gave us a chance none of us deserved." Mara looked up. "And what will you do with it?" "Protect it," Lucien said simply. "As long as I can." They stood together, watching the sky turn gold. For a moment, it was easy to believe peace could last. That night, as the castle slept, Mara wandered into the chapel. The great stained-glass window above the altar depicted the same crest, the crown and thorns, but now it glowed with both gold and silver light. She touched the cool stone beneath it and whispered, "Mom, I hope you can see this." A faint breeze stirred, carrying the softest echo of a song. The lullaby again, but this time peaceful, no sorrow, no warning. Celeste entered quietly. "Talking to ghosts?" "Maybe," Mara said with a small smile. "But this one listens." Celeste nodded. "She'd be proud." "We all would." Mara turned to her. "Do you think peace will hold?" Celeste's eyes twinkled. "Peace is never a wall, dear. It's a bridge. You just have to keep walking it." Mara looked out the window again. "Then I'll guard it." By dawn, the world outside had changed. The first light spilled over mountains that no longer hid from day. Humans and vampires alike worked side by side repairing roads, planting gardens, rebuilding what had been lost. Lucien stood on the highest tower, watching the sun rise for the first time in centuries. Mara joined him, her cloak fluttering in the breeze. "You could stay," he said quietly. "Rule beside me." She smiled. "You don't need a queen, Lucien. You need a guardian." He inclined his head. "And who will guard you?" She looked at the horizon. "The world, I hope." He nodded. "Then perhaps it's time I let it." That morning, the castle bells rang again, not for war, but for peace. Mara walked through the courtyard as children played around the fountain, their laughter mingling with the flutter of banners. Adrian ran up to her, holding a parchment sealed with gold wax. "It's from the city," he said proudly. "They want to meet the human guardian of the night." Mara blinked. "That's what they're calling me now?" He grinned. "It sounds important." She laughed softly. "I guess it does." She opened the letter. It was a formal invitation from human leaders requesting her presence at a summit to establish peace between both worlds. Lucian appeared behind them. "It seems your work isn't done after all." Mara folded the parchment. "It never is." She looked at Adrian, then at the rising sun. "But at least now, we're walking toward the light." That evening, the castle glowed with lanterns. Music drifted through the halls, soft, warm, full of hope. Mara stood by the balcony, watching stars appear one by one. Lucian joined her, holding 2 cups of spiced tea. "Strange," he said. "I once thought night and day were meant to destroy each other." "And now?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Now I think they were only waiting to meet." They drank in silence, listening to the laughter below. For the first time in her life, Mara felt peace not as a distant dream but as something real, fragile, yes, but alive. As the last stars shimmered, she whispered to herself, "Once, I served coffee to strangers. Now, I serve a throne of blood and light." The wind carried the lullaby once more, gentle and whole. Light to bind, blood to see. The crown of night at last set free. And in that moment, Mara knew the world would remember not the wars, nor the monsters, but the woman who had walked between both and turned darkness into dawn. If this story pulled you into its world, don't slip back to reality just yet. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and step deeper into the shadows with me, where every dawn hides another secret.